America's AI power play, the White House's 28-page plan. The White House just dropped a bombshell, a 28-page plan that reveals America's critical race to stay ahead in AI. But here's what caught my attention. While we're adding several dozen gigawatts of power capacity in the last year, China is building 400 gigawatts. That's not a competition anymore, that's a crisis. Today I'm breaking down both the White House's AI action plan and Anthropic's infrastructure report that dropped simultaneously. We'll unpack the White House's blueprint for innovation, its plan to supercharge U.S. power grids, and how America aims to win the diplomatic game. What you'll discover will change how you think about America's position in the global AI race. What happens if we can't power the next generation of AI models? The energy crisis nobody saw coming. The answer lies in numbers that will shock you. By 2028, AI training will consume more electricity than entire nations. We're talking about a future where companies like Anthropic will need 20 to 25 gigawatts of power just to train their models. To put that in perspective, it's twice New York City's peak demand and an equal amount for inference, so roughly 50 gigawatts total when you factor in all the actual usage of these AI systems. But here's where it gets really wild. Anthropic alone will require the equivalent of New Zealand's entire power grid just for their operations. Think about that for a moment. A single American AI company will need as much electricity as a developed nation of 5 million people. We're not talking about running a few servers in a data center anymore. We're talking about industrial-scale energy consumption that rivals entire countries. Now here's the problem that keeps me up at night. While America debates environmental permits and argues over power plant approvals, China is building at a pace that makes our heads spin. They're adding over 400 gigawatts of new power capacity, while we're managing to squeeze out several dozen gigawatts. It's like gearing up for a marathon, while your competitor is already halfway to the finish line. This energy gap represents a hidden constraint that could completely derail America's AI ambitions before they even get started. You can have the smartest engineers, the most innovative algorithms, and the biggest venture capital funds in the world. But if you can't plug your AI systems into the wall and turn them on, none of that matters. It's that simple and that terrifying. Here's what makes this crisis even more complex. Training models is just the beginning of our energy problems. Once these AI systems are trained, they need to run inference for millions of users around the clock. Every time someone asks ChatGPT a question or uses AI to generate an image, that requires computing power. So who's going to build all that power, and fast enough to matter? What does this mean for America's position in the world? Energy capacity is becoming the new measure of geopolitical power in the AI age. The countries that can generate massive amounts of electricity will be the ones that train the most advanced AI models. They'll be the ones whose AI systems get deployed globally. They'll be the ones setting the standards for how AI behaves and what values it represents. This completely changes how we think about technological leadership. For decades, we assumed that having the smartest people and the best universities would keep America ahead. We thought innovation happened in labs and boardrooms. But AI has taught us something different. Physical infrastructure, not just algorithms, determines who leads in AI. You can't code your way around the laws of physics. You can't innovate around the need for massive amounts of electricity. The stakes couldn't be higher. Without solving this energy puzzle, America's technological edge starts to crumble. All those investments in AI research, all those billions flowing into startups, all those talented engineers moving to Silicon Valley mean nothing if we can't power the systems they're building. It's like having the world's best race car drivers but no fuel for the cars. Think about what happens next. The countries that solve this energy challenge first will attract the best AI companies. They'll host the training runs for the most advanced models. Their governments will have access to the most powerful AI systems. Their economies will benefit from the productivity gains that advanced AI provides. Meanwhile, countries that fall behind in energy infrastructure will find themselves importing AI technology instead of creating it. This isn't some distant future problem we can solve later. The energy infrastructure decisions being made right now will determine which countries lead AI development for the next decade. Power plants take years to build. Electrical grids take even longer to expand. If we don't start building massive energy capacity today, we'll wake up in 5 years wondering how America lost its AI advantage. The real AI race isn't happening in Silicon Valley boardrooms, where executives debate model architectures and training techniques. It's being fought in power plants and electrical grids, where the fundamental question is simple: who can generate enough electricity to power the future of artificial intelligence? But behind closed doors in Washington, something unprecedented has been taking shape. Inside the White House war room, senior officials and tech advisors spent 6 months drafting this plan, with former venture capitalist Sharam Krishnan leading the charge to craft America's most comprehensive AI strategy ever. This wasn't your typical government committee throwing together a report. Officials worked around the clock to address what they recognized as an existential threat to American technological leadership. The result? A 28-page document that represents nothing less than America's declaration that AI dominance is now a national security priority. What makes this plan different from every other government tech initiative? It's built around 3 core pillars: accelerate AI innovation, build American AI infrastructure, and lead in international AI diplomacy and security. But here's what caught my attention. The timing wasn't accidental. The White House coordinated the release of their plan with Anthropic's infrastructure report, signaling something we've never seen before: unprecedented private-public coordination on AI strategy. This wasn't the government working in isolation while companies complained about regulations. This was Silicon Valley and Washington actually talking to each other. Let's break down Pillar 1, because it represents a massive shift in how the government thinks about innovation. The administration is betting everything on accelerating AI innovation by removing what they call red tape and onerous regulations. But here's the surprising part. They're embracing open-source AI development, despite all the security concerns about China. They back open source because it turns American AI into a global standard. The report highlights open-weight models as geostrategic assets, since they embed American values and enable startups and researchers worldwide. Think about it this way: if American companies create the most advanced open-source AI models, and those models are trained on data that reflects American values and perspectives, then those models become the global standard. Every startup in Brazil, every research lab in Germany, every developer in India ends up building on top of fundamentally American AI systems. The plan recognizes that open source and open-weight models could become global standards in business and academic research, giving them geostrategic value. It's soft power through software. This strategy requires the government to do something it's historically been terrible at: actually supporting innovation instead of just regulating it. The plan calls for ensuring access to large-scale computing power for startups and academics. It pushes for partnerships with leading technology companies. It removes barriers that have historically slowed down AI development. What does this mean for you? If you're working in AI or thinking about starting an AI company, the government is essentially saying it wants to help, not hinder your progress. But there's another crucial element here that most people are missing. The government is prioritizing something called AI evaluation systems. Why does this matter? Because building trust in AI systems is just as important as building the systems themselves. The plan includes a call to build an AI evaluations ecosystem. This isn't about slowing down innovation with bureaucratic oversight. It's about creating the testing and validation systems that will convince the world that American AI is safe, reliable, and trustworthy. When other countries are deciding which AI systems to adopt, they'll choose the ones they can trust. Here's why this connects to something much bigger than just technology. This entire strategy is designed to create economic growth, new jobs, and scientific advancements. The administration understands that AI isn't just about building cool technology. It's about maintaining America's position as the world's dominant economic power. Every AI breakthrough that happens in America instead of China means jobs for American workers, profits for American companies, and influence for American values around the world. What makes this moment so significant? For the first time, the American government is treating AI development like a national priority comparable to the space race or the Manhattan Project. The plan's introduction emphasizes the importance of winning the race for global AI dominance to usher in a new era of human flourishing, economic competitiveness, and national security for the American people. Those aren't just nice words. They represent a fundamental shift in how America approaches technological competition. But what infrastructure does all this innovation really need on the ground? That's where the second pillar reveals something that will shock you about America's current energy reality. Building America's AI backbone. Growth in U.S. power capacity has essentially flatlined since the 1970s. While we've been debating and arguing over permits, China has been building power plants at breakneck speed. They're not just beating us in the AI race because they have smart engineers. They're winning because they have the electricity to power their ambitions. The infrastructure pillar of the White House plan recognizes this harsh reality and proposes something that sounds almost impossible: completely reshaping America's power grid to support the AI economy. What does this actually look like in practice? The plan embraces what they call an all-of-the-above energy approach. We're talking about nuclear power plants, geothermal facilities, natural gas operations, and renewable energy projects all working together. This isn't about picking winners and losers in the energy debate anymore. It's about generating massive amounts of electricity as quickly as possible, regardless of the source. Why this comprehensive strategy? Because AI doesn't care whether its power comes from solar panels or nuclear reactors. It just needs reliable, abundant electricity to function. But here's where things get really interesting. The plan targets one of the biggest obstacles to building anything in America: the permitting nightmare. Right now, getting approval to build energy infrastructure requires state and federal permits, transmission approvals, and environmental reviews that can take years. By the time you've jumped through all these hoops, China has built 3 power plants. The White House plan aims to streamline this entire process, cutting through the red tape that has paralyzed American infrastructure development for decades. Here's a creative solution that caught my attention: using federal lands as the foundation for massive AI training facilities. Anthropic explicitly called for federal land availability to bypass state and local zoning processes. Think about it this way. Instead of fighting with local communities and state governments over where to build data centers, why not use land that the federal government already controls? This could bypass years of zoning battles and environmental reviews. Picture vast stretches of federal land in Nevada or Montana transformed into AI training complexes, with dedicated power plants built right alongside them. It's not just about speed. It's about creating AI infrastructure on a scale that would be impossible to achieve through traditional development processes. Now let's talk about the workforce challenge, because you can't build this infrastructure without people who know how to build it. The plan calls for training and apprenticeships for electricians, construction workers, and critical energy technicians. Roles Anthropic flagged as urgent. What does this mean for you? If you're thinking about career changes or know someone entering the job market, projected job growth in grid construction and AI data center operations could offer substantial opportunities. We're not just talking about temporary construction work. We're talking about creating an entire new category of skilled jobs focused on maintaining and operating AI infrastructure. The semiconductor component of this plan connects to something much bigger than just computer chips. The plan includes reshoring American semiconductor, recognizing that you can't have AI infrastructure without the specialized chips that power it. But here's what makes this really smart. They're also focusing on strengthening domestic production of critical grid components through loan and loan guarantee programs. Why does this matter? Because building power plants and electrical grids requires specialized equipment that we currently import from other countries, including China. Creating domestic supply chains for these components means we're not dependent on potential competitors for the basic building blocks of our AI infrastructure. The public-private partnership model for expedited power line construction represents something we haven't seen in America for decades. Government and business actually working together to build something massive. Instead of companies and regulators fighting each other, they're coordinating efforts to build the power lines that will carry electricity from new power plants to AI data centers. This collaborative approach could cut construction timelines in half, while ensuring that projects meet both safety standards and business needs. All of these domestic manufacturing goals connect to a larger strategic objective: reducing dependence on foreign supply chains. When you're building the infrastructure that will determine your country's technological future, you can't rely on other countries for critical components. The plan recognizes that true AI independence requires manufacturing independence. Every grid component, every specialized piece of equipment, every critical technology needs to be producible on American soil. What we're looking at here isn't just an upgrade to America's infrastructure. This represents the largest industrial transformation since electrification first reached American cities over a century ago. We're essentially rebuilding our entire energy infrastructure around the specific needs of artificial intelligence, creating a foundation that could power American technological leadership for the next 50 years. But building the infrastructure is only half the battle. The real challenge lies in how America uses this technological advantage on the world stage, the global chess game. The White House faces a diplomatic paradox that would challenge any administration. How do you lead the world while putting America first? The third pillar of their AI strategy attempts to solve this puzzle through what they call leading in international AI diplomacy and security. This means export American AI systems, hardware, and standards while restricting advanced infrastructure exports to China. The strategy here is surprisingly straightforward. Once you understand the logic, America wants to deny China access to advanced infrastructure needed to train competitive AI models, while simultaneously spreading American AI models to every other country in the world. Think about what this creates: a global ecosystem where most countries depend on American AI technology, making it much harder for Chinese alternatives to gain traction. It's like controlling the operating system that everyone else builds their applications on top of. But here's what makes this approach so powerful in the long term. By exporting US models, we export American approaches to fairness and privacy embedded in their training data. When an AI system trained by an American company makes decisions about hiring, lending, or content moderation in countries around the world, those decisions reflect the values and perspectives that were built into the training process. We're not just talking about technology exports. We're talking about exporting American perspectives on decision-making to billions of people who will interact with these systems. The alliance-building component represents a completely different approach to international relations in the digital age. Instead of traditional military partnerships or trade agreements, America is creating technology partnerships with democratic allies. Picture this: American companies help European governments deploy AI systems for healthcare and education, while those same governments commit to using American hardware and following American AI safety standards. These partnerships create mutual dependence that goes far beyond typical diplomatic relationships. Export control mechanisms form the enforcement backbone of this entire strategy. The plan calls for plugging loopholes in semiconductor export rules to maintain technological advantages by controlling which countries can access advanced semiconductors and AI infrastructure components. This isn't just about preventing sales to China. It's about creating a tiered system where America's closest allies get access to the most advanced technology, while potential competitors face restrictions that slow down their AI development. Countries that align with American interests get faster access to cutting-edge AI capabilities, while those that don't find themselves several generations behind in AI development. Data center construction and computing hardware become tools of soft power in ways that most people don't realize. When American companies build data centers in allied countries, they're not just providing computing services, they're creating infrastructure that those countries become dependent on for their own AI development. Consider a university researcher in Germany who needs to train an AI model but can't access closed proprietary systems. They turn to American open-weight models running on American-built infrastructure with American-designed chips. Their entire research project becomes fundamentally tied to American technology and American decisions about access and pricing. This AI diplomacy connects directly to traditional foreign policy goals and military advantages. Countries with the most advanced AI systems will have significant advantages in everything from economic planning to military operations. The plan recognizes that AI dominance has significant implications for national security and economic competitiveness. AI technology is becoming as important to international relations as nuclear weapons were during the Cold War. Countries that fall behind in AI capabilities will find themselves at a systematic disadvantage in almost every area of competition. Here's where the tension becomes really apparent. The administration wants to promote open innovation and collaboration, which typically means sharing technology and knowledge freely. But they also need to maintain national security advantages, which requires keeping certain technologies away from competitors. The plan tries to thread this needle by supporting open-source AI development while maintaining strict controls on the hardware and infrastructure needed to actually deploy these systems at scale. This creates an interesting dynamic where American AI models might be freely available to download and study, but only countries with access to American-controlled infrastructure can actually use them effectively. It's like publishing the blueprints for a race car while controlling access to the specialized fuel it needs to run. What becomes clear when you examine all these pieces together is that we're witnessing the emergence of a new form of international competition. If America controls the stack from hardware to models, who else can keep pace? But having an ambitious plan on paper is one thing. Making it work in the real world is something entirely different. Here's where the rubber meets the road. Think about how long it takes to build anything in America today. High-speed rail projects that were announced decades ago still haven't been completed. Basic road repairs can take years. Environmental reviews for new facilities routinely stretch on for multiple years. Now imagine trying to build hundreds of power plants, thousands of miles of new power lines, and massive data centers across the country, all while racing against China, which can approve and build major infrastructure projects in a fraction of the time. Georgetown professor Ryan Fedesuk offers some insight here, noting that the plan reads like it was written by people who understand both the technology and the stakes. That's encouraging, but understanding the problem and solving it are two very different things. The gap between these ambitious goals and our current implementation capacity is enormous. We're asking a government that struggles to build simple infrastructure projects to execute the largest industrial transformation in American history. The reality check. Can we truly outbuild a system that bypasses courts and community votes? The coordination challenge between federal, state, and local authorities represents one of the biggest obstacles to success. The federal government can write all the plans they want, but actually building power plants requires state permits. Constructing power lines requires local zoning approvals. Installing data centers requires community support. What happens when environmental groups challenge these projects in court? What happens when local communities oppose having massive AI training facilities in their neighborhoods? What makes this different from previous government tech initiatives that promised big changes but delivered disappointment? Remember the broadband expansion programs that were supposed to bring high-speed internet to rural America? Or the various green energy initiatives that spent billions with mixed results? Even bipartisan grid modernization bills have struggled in Congress for years. The track record isn't encouraging, but there's something different about this moment. Anthropic timed their report to coincide with the White House release, suggesting a level of coordination that could make implementation more realistic. Private sector response has been cautiously optimistic, but companies are watching to see whether the government can actually deliver on its promises. Tech companies have heard grand pronouncements from Washington before. They've seen regulatory frameworks promised that never materialized. They've watched as political priorities shifted with new administrations. What makes this time different? The sheer scale of the challenge forces everyone to work together. No single company can build the infrastructure needed for AI at scale. No government agency can coordinate this level of industrial development alone. Timeline pressures make everything more complicated. China isn't waiting for American bureaucracy to catch up. While we're conducting environmental reviews, they're pouring concrete. While we're debating permitting reform, they're connecting new power plants to their grid. The plan recognizes this urgency, but recognizing a problem and solving it aren't the same thing. How do you speed up American decision-making without abandoning the democratic processes and environmental protections that define our system? The funding reality raises serious questions about congressional support. Building this infrastructure will cost hundreds of billions of dollars. Congress will need to appropriate these funds year after year, through multiple election cycles, regardless of which party controls which chambers. What happens when budget deficits become a political issue again? What happens when other priorities compete for the same funding? The plan outlines ambitious goals, but it doesn't solve the fundamental challenge of maintaining political support for massive spending over many years. The plan's success depends not just on good intentions, but on executing the largest infrastructure project in American history, while racing against a determined competitor that doesn't face the same political and regulatory constraints. So can democracy's checks and balances survive this industrial sprint? The answer to that question will determine far more than just America's position in AI. Conclusions. Here's what this all comes down to. This isn't just about AI technology or even energy infrastructure. This is about whether America can still execute massive industrial transformations in the 21st century. From power plants to global partnerships, this plan stakes America's future on AI. Georgetown professor Ryan Fedesuk put it perfectly. The United States is in a race to achieve global dominance in AI. Whoever has the largest AI ecosystem will set global AI standards and reap broad economic and military benefits. And that means we all need to watch where the power flows, literally. What does this mean for you? Whether you're starting your career, running a business, or just thinking about the future, this transformation will reshape everything. If you want to understand how these policies shape the next wave of startups and careers, subscribe for our ongoing analysis.